Right then, we'll make a start then. I think numbers have stabilised. So, about us. So I know there's lots of people in here that we have met before, but just to introduce myself, my name is Lindsay Gainster. I'm an employment solicitor, also director at Bhayani HR Employment Law. On today as well, we've also got Jay Bhayani, who many of you may know. We've been running our HR exchanges for quite a few years now with the view that HR can be a very lonely place for people, especially if you're in a standalone HR role, and we wanted to do something that could bring HR advisors and professionals together, share our knowledge with you in terms of what's happening in the employment law world. This is our opportunity, as I said, for you to network a little bit, but also, as I said, for us to hopefully teach you a thing or two, although you probably already know a great deal. In terms of us as a firm, we have been now going for 7-8 years. We are a specialist employment law and HR firm. We are regulated, so we're regulated by the Solicitors Regulation Authority. And like I said, we just specialise in employment law and HR, and we cover the whole spectrum of everything you and your company might need. So we cover your contracts, your handbooks. I do a lot of work around drafting. I help with disputes, tribunal claims. We've got a HR team that are specialised in dealing with grievances and disciplinaries. So one of the things we can do is offer also a parachute service. If you feel that you need an extra body or two, or you need someone independent to do an investigation, someone to run a grievance for you because you might not have enough managers, or the grievance may be about one of your managers, we can parachute one of our HR professionals in to help with that and to lead on some of these processes. In terms as well, what I do a lot of employment tribunal representation, which includes everything from unfair dismissals, discrimination. We'd love to be able to talk to you before that happens and to make sure we can keep you safe and out of the tribunal, but sometimes it's unavoidable. So when that claim form lands, you know where we are if you do need any help or advice with that. We have got lots of information on our website, so we're referring to flyers here. There's our employment law specifically for businesses. So one of the other things that I do is that I can come into your business, sit on your boards, and we can discuss things like restructures, 2P, redundancies, where we need to make some quite difficult decisions, but sometimes it can be good to have a helping hand there. So I'm more than happy to come out and give guidance on those issues as well. And then we've got our watertight HR and legal package. So you might think, well, I'm HR, why would we need this? The idea is that the watertight and HR and legal package is there to support you in your role. We're not there to replace you. We're there to be a sounding board for your decisions. It's unlimited advice, so that's calls, emails. We provide you with template letters to make sure that you are getting your communications right, especially when dealing with things like disciplinaries or grievances. We also provide you with a contract and a handbook. So we've got different options that we can do there for your watertight and HR legal package. It is a retainer package. You decide how long you want to sign up for, so we give you some options there. And yeah, we become your HR support. So we actually do support lots of businesses that do have a HR function, but just need that extra safety net and that extra pair of hands. Alongside that as well, we have health and safety that we can offer. So obviously COVID, lots of things have changed. So if you feel that you are in need now of a health and safety review, please let us know. We can send Jason out. We'll be happy to come and have a chat with you about your health and safety needs, and just to make sure that you're up to date. And you've filled in all those forms that you should have done. You've done all the risk assessments. So if you any of these that I've talked about today, if you want to get in touch, there's a slide at the end on how you can contact us. But also, if you are not even in the local area. We travel far and wide now. If you'd like Jason to come out and see you to discuss any of these issues, he's more than happy to come and visit you, even if it is just to find out a bit more about what we do. So we do specialise in lots of different areas. As I said, we help general business owners, but particularly charities. We do a lot of work with charities because they tend to have their own unique issues, as does, we put restaurant and pub owners there, but hospitality. And you guys have been through the mill these last few years, and there's still lots of problems that are coming out as a result of all the, unfortunately, some of the drastic decisions some of you guys had to make. So we are quite specialists in certain areas. And again, more than happy to discuss your individual issues or problems. But now we're going to move on to our other new area. So what's been really exciting during lockdown for us is that we have launched a recruitment service. It is an independent service, it's our sister company. And the idea is that we felt that we just had more to offer. We helped you with your contracts, your handbooks, you take on new staff would leave, we'd look after them while they were there, but what we didn't do is help fill that gap. So our recruitment and employee life cycle. So we have set up our own recruitment business. It's going extremely well. We've placed lots of candidates, but I'm now going to pass over to Phoebe, who is one of our recruitment advisors. And what Phoebe is going to do now is take you through a little bit more about our Bhayani Recruitment, but also to take you through some of the trends that she's found been happening, particularly over the last few months. So Phoebe, I am going to pass control over to yourself. You should now be able to operate the slides.
Yeah, I think we're all good. Yep, we've got control. So, as Lindsay said, as specialists in people management, we felt like we had more to offer, hence why we started the sister company Bhayani Recruitment. And I think the key thing for us is just making sure that that first step in the life cycle has been done right, because we can support you from all the way from hiring to termination in Bhayani law, but a lot of the time what we see is those problems could perhaps be avoided at the first pre-recruitment stage. I'll help you with that. And we do specialise in some certain sectors, and as you can see on the slide, these are the sectors where we have perhaps the best networks to be able to help you recruit, but no vacancies are off the cards. The reason why we set this up is because we can provide a really bespoke, holistic service to our existing clients. So even if you need help with recruitment and your sector is on there, that doesn't mean that we can't help you. So get in touch if you think that we can add some value to your recruitment process. And our commitment is that we will donate 10% of our profits to charities at the end of the financial year. So watch this space to see what kind of work we're going to be doing. So let's get started. As I'm sure many HR professionals and business owners alike have seen, there has been a crisis in recruitment over the last few years, with a record number of vacancies. As of November 2021, I don't really think that's changed, to be honest. And the competition for candidates has just increased to such an extent that in a lot of cases there just haven't been people applying for jobs. I know at one point there were, filtering candidates was such a huge part of recruiters' time, but I think that shifted now, and it's more about actually finding the candidates in the first place. I know that a lot of people have had huge difficulties recruiting across a lot of different sectors. And a lot of people did talk about the Great Resignation. Personally, I don't think that has happened, and I'm not sure that it will, to be honest. I think that the gap is closing and there is more movement, but certainly we haven't seen a Great Resignation yet. Don't know if anybody else has had a different experience in their sector. We have seen that Brexit has had a huge impact, especially in hospitality and agriculture, perhaps in other sectors too, that employ a lot of migrant workers. And another key trend is remote working being here to stay. So this, I think, has created a lot of change within cultures in office environments, but it has also brought challenges for businesses that can't offer remote working, because now, you know, if remote working isn't on the cards, I think that can make it more difficult to recruit. You know, people just expect that, but for many roles, it's just not possible. So it's about thinking creatively in terms of incentives that you can offer, instead of home working, that will attract candidates. Because expectations, I think, have changed quite a lot since COVID has been around. So moving on then to thinking about candidate expectations, anybody who has studied CIPD qualification will be familiar with this, but I actually think, although this is sort of a bit of a dated theory, it's more relevant than ever right now, and that's thinking about candidate expectations and the psychological employment contract. Now, these are a set of expectations on both sides that exist in the recruitment process, specifically, that aren't written down. You know, you aren't going to find these in your contracts, in your handbooks, in your policies or adverts, anything like that. But when people are going into a recruitment process, that be candidates or employers, a lot of the time they'll ask, you know, what is it like to work there? What can I expect? What can I expect from the company? And business will have a set of expectations from the employee. Oftentimes, to really get to the bottom of what those expectations are, how they've changed. Make sure that both parties are clear. Is it particular theory? It's not right, it's not wrong. I definitely think there's things in there that are true. And the theory is that now we're in 2022, long-term careers are going to be much less common than they once were. And we'll see a lot of more lateral career development, a lot of people moving around mid-career, maybe not wanting to climb the ladder as much as they once were. They're prioritising other things like work-life balance, flexibility. They're thinking about total reward rather than just the salary. We might see employees having multiple roles because people are prioritising enrichment and developing their own skills. And a key thing is added value as well. So rather than perhaps just thinking about working really long hours to demonstrate commitment in return for a higher salary, and thinking about what are the specific requirements of my job and how can I do those to the best of my ability. People are now thinking, how can I add value? And that doesn't necessarily mean you need to put in super long hours. It just means, how can you add the most value within the scope of your role during the time that you're at work? And I think employers are looking for that too. And, they're thinking about the value that people can add rather than necessarily what is the job description, are they fulfilling that? And employees, are looking for more opportunities to learn within their roles. And there's been a lot more internal mobility than we've seen before. So that's the theory. And you can see in the table how these particular researchers have set out how things have changed over time. So now what we're going to do is have a think about your offering. So within your organisation, outside of your contract of employment, have a think about what you think you offer and what you expect from candidates. What is it like to work there? What is your culture like? What is your offering that you can't quite quantify on paper? So what we're going to do now is have a think about that, and Lindsay is going to pop us into some breakout rooms where we can have a chat about your offering and the expect candidates, whether or not you feel it fits in the team.
Thank you, Phoebe. So we're going to have 4 rooms. Andy's going to be in room 1. We've got Jay in room 2. Phoebe's going to join room 3, and I will join you guys in room 4. And like I said, it's just an opportunity for you to get to talk to each other, to share some ideas about what your business offers and also how that might tie into your culture. So let's start the rooms. So you should have all been invited.
Charlotte's still trying.
Okay. Have we got anybody else? I've now managed, I think, to get this sorted on my computer. So I'm going to go off here and hopefully I'll still be on the computer. Can people hear and see me? No, I'm not in the...
control. We should all be filtering back in now. I've lost his place on our slides.
There we are, Lynn's on the table.
We're back.
Yeah.
Right then. Right, peeps, can you still control, or do we need to just...
Cannot.
Hold on then. Joyce. There we go. Right, Phoebes, you're back in control.
I am.
So.
Okay, that was really interesting. Some people said some interesting things in mine. I don't know about yours, Lynn. Did anyone say anything that?
So we had Emily, who has a recruitment business, who's working with a recruitment business. We had Danny from a hotel chain, and in terms of the extra benefits, things that we identified it was more about celebrating the wins, trying to do the little things that make people feel valued, so sending cards and chocolates, going out for drinks, just to keep trying to bring everyone in. And the other thing that we were discussing was like challenges, and Craig, who works at NewMed, just mentioned that it can be quite hard if people are still working at home to make them feel included. And to bring them back in, because ultimately we felt that people were still very much expecting hybrid working, and actually challenges for recruitment particularly were flexibility for working, and also expecting higher salaries, having businesses outside of cities now having to compete with city centre salaries because of people being able to work from home.
Yeah.
So that was some feedback from our group.
Yeah. Well, the key thing from mine was someone mentioned that as a charity, that's sort of a big. People are drawn to charities because of the work that they do. And she's saying that people have been there for like 20 years. And I think that's really interesting, and that's definitely a big selling point that we see for charities. A lot of the time people's motive for applying with a charity isn't the salary, isn't the terms and conditions or the benefits. It's a chance to be involved in the work that they do, and they feel like their values align. And a lot of the time you can't assess that through what's in the contract or what's in the advert. It's just about getting to know the organisation and seeing if there's a fit there. So we'll move on then from that. Look at attraction strategies. Now I stole this from the CIPD. I don't know if anybody has a look at these, but the CIPD do resourcing and talent planning surveys each year, and I think they're really interesting, and they give you an indication as to the methods that people are using to recruit and retain their teams, and it's really good to pick up ideas, I think, as well. And looking at this one, I think that is really accurate, to be honest. I don't know what anyone else thinks, but I think that it's pretty true to how things are going at the minute with attracting new recruits. So thinking about our top tips, these are the main things for me from that. It's the first one is careers page. So if you don't have one, I'd strongly recommend putting something on there. And it doesn't need to be anything too in depth. It can just be a bit of information about you, the work you do, your culture. If you've not got anything on there about your values, I'd recommend putting something like that on. Even if you don't have any vacancies, if you're out and about pushing your brand, regardless of what it's for, a lot of the time you'll find that people will go on your website and they'll have a scout around, and they'll look at your careers page, even if they're not necessarily looking right now, but just out of interest. And it's a really good way to attract sort of passive talent, I think. because if you've got customers on your website, chances are they're your candidates as well. So make sure that you've got something on there, and I'll show you an example of some work we did on ours in a minute. The other thing which I think is going to be sort of hot in the next year is training and reskilling, whether that be apprenticeships, graduates, entry level training, or reskilling people. Throughout COVID, there's been more people changing careers than ever before, I think, and offering apprenticeships and training programs to people that are maybe career returners, people that have had a break, or people that are looking to change career, I think is really important. And there's no age limit on an apprentice or on somebody coming as a trainee. So I think that's a really big thing to look at for employers, because if you're offering training programs, then you're likely to attract candidates from unconventional sources. So yeah, I think that's a big thing for people to look at. The other thing is demonstrating commitment to flexibility and work-life balance. Flexibility and work-life balance doesn't just mean working from home. It means, flexibility around working hours. Location, of course, sort of comes into it, but it's about sort of demonstrating that you can offer a good work-life balance, and people will be allowed to go and attend appointments. You're going to commit some time to people that are perhaps doing qualifications outside of work. You might advertise that you offer enhanced family leave. There's lots of things, that's what I'm trying to say, that you can do to demonstrate commitment to flexibility and work-life balance other than working from home, although that is a big one. And for people who are office-based, I would strongly recommend thinking about your home working offering long term. Make sure that you've got the right policies in place, you've got the right information in your contracts and so on. Because a lot of the time as well, I think I found that a lot of businesses have sort of just carried on informal, flexible working from COVID, but they've not actually thought about how this is going to work for them long term and how it's going to look for new recruits. So I think it's worth dedicating some time to thinking about your home working policy long term, so that can be communicated out as part of your recruitment. And the last point is diversifying recruitment outreach. So I know we talked about the importance of your own website, but unless you're getting a lot of clicks on your own website, you're unlikely to have success by just advertising vacancies on there. And in the same breath, you're unlikely to have success just by putting vacancies on Indeed or Total Jobs or whatever job board you use. You need to think about where are your people? Can you utilize local press? Can you utilize more national press? And it is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Where you're likely to pick up entry-level candidates, they're not the same places that you're going to find senior candidates necessarily. And the same when it comes to diversifying the people that you have within your team. If you're sort of one of your goals is to increase diversity within your teams, think about where you're actually going to find those people. Because if there is a need to diversify within your team, it means that there needs to be a change in your recruitment methods. Because people from minority communities might not be seeing your adverts. So I'd really do some market research as to, if you're thinking about diversity and where you're likely to find those candidates. And we can help you with that. And that's a big part of what we do is we'll, do quite a lot of research into where you want candidates to come from, what the best method of advertising is for each vacancy. And this is what I was saying about our website. So this is what we did, and it wasn't a massive piece of work at all. We just put some details on there about our story, our culture, what it's like to work for us, And we did this for Bhayani Law and Bhayani Recruitment. We've got a bit on there about our values and our offering outside of basic terms and conditions. So yeah, take a look at that if you want some ideas. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is employer brand. Any, people who are going through a big spurt of growth, for HR professionals, this will be on the agenda, thinking about your reputation as an employer. Now, it's linked to your corporate brand, but it is fundamentally different. There's plenty of employees out there who say that their values have to align with those of the employer. And like I was saying, with charities, it's a big selling point. The fact that people want to work there just because of the work that they do. But there's also a lot of employees that aren't that bothered about the values or the work. They're bothered about what it's going to be like for them working for you, and that's why your employer brand is really, really important. You need to be communicating what your defining features are to make it clear for candidates what it's like to work there. So really think about what you're putting on. Have you got a presence on Glassdoor? Have you got a presence on Indeed? Because employees can leave reviews on Indeed. And, we've had quite a few shock clients in the past when they've discovered some reviews that are on there. So make sure you're claiming your accounts, even if you're really, really small. Make sure that you're posting some stuff on social. So, for example, if you know that you're going to be recruiting somebody and it's going to be quite a tricky position, put the work in leading up to when you advertise that vacancy. Make sure that you're putting some stuff on social media about what it's like to work for you, because, and I think, to be honest, it's even more important for SMEs to make sure that they're visible and they have a visible employer brand, because if you're wanting to attract talent from much bigger corporates where they have a very, very established brand, it's going to be, a lot of the time I find them more nervous to come into an SME because it's just not as clear, what the culture is like and, what they're all about. And a lot of the work we do during the recruitment process is sort of, explaining to candidates what they're all about. And if there's nothing on social media, we have to put quite a lot of work in sometimes to convince candidates that it is a great place to work. So I think whether or not you use an agency or you're recruiting directly, make sure that you've got stuff on there so that people can sort of go on there and see what you're all about. And yeah, I would really encourage you to make sure there's a presence on Glassdoor, and you can ask existing employees to write reviews on there if they're comfortable, and so on. So the next thing is moving on sort of from that pre-recruitment stage. It's about onboarding. A lot of retention issues, I think, stem from poor onboarding process. So a lot of the work we've been doing recently is thinking about how we can help, once we've placed a candidate, thinking about how we can help make sure they have a really, really good experience when they're there. So the first thing is to identify your key stakeholders. Who is going to be involved when they start? Make sure that button doesn't get dropped, and that people's roles are very clear and everybody knows how they're going to link in. Make sure that you can streamline as many tasks as you can before you're on. So, look at implementing some HR software if you haven't already, because it's really, really affordable, and it means that you can just streamline a lot of your sort of more dull tasks, like getting a contract sent, getting the handbook sent, letting them know what ID they need to bring. You can get all of that information. You can automate all of those processes through really affordable HR software, which leaves you free to, crack on with the key parts of the induction. Really think about the start date. Just because you need the help doesn't mean that, having them start when you've got some big projects on is a good idea. It isn't. The last thing you need is new starters just sat there waiting for their managers to have the time. So really think about that. You probably do want them in as quick as possible, but a lot of the time you've just really got to think about when realistically the best time is for them to start. And think about, again, with onboarding, it's not a one size fits all approach. Think about the type of work they're going to be doing, think about the resources they need. With a manager, they perhaps don't need as much hand holding, but they are going to need all their resources at their fingertips so that they can sort of become effective as quickly as possible. So you can make sure that they've got access to everything they need, but you don't necessarily need to spend every minute of the day with them. Now, when you think about maybe people in customer service roles that are going to be exposed to customers straight away, it's a very, very high interaction induction process. So it needs to be planned carefully to make sure that they are getting that supervision during the first few weeks. And the last thing is making sure you regularly review during the induction process, because when it comes to exiting employees during the probation period or at the end, that shouldn't be a shock to the employee. They will know if things aren't working. You should know if they're not happy, on the same token. So make sure that you're having regular one-to-ones, with new starters, because that probation period is for both of you. So, make sure you've got sort of documents and conversations that you've had throughout, so that if the worst does happen and at the end of the probation period you decide not to keep them, you've got some tangible evidence as to why that is, to reduce the risk for the organisation. Thinking about key themes for retention now, induction is obviously only one quite immediate retention issue. So let's kind of talk about key themes in 2022. Now you may disagree with these, but these are the themes that we think you're likely to see over the next year or so. So like I said before, flexibility is a big one. It's here to stay. I think, the working world has changed forever when it comes to flexibility and what people are expecting. So think about your offering as a whole. Now that's not just working from home, it's everything from internal mobility. Do you allow people to change role? What is your family leave offering? What is your policy on appointments? All these really little things form your flexibility up. So really think about what that is going to be moving forward. The next big thing I think is going to be total reward and reward fairness. So really thinking about what your incentives are. And total reward is every aspect of work that's valued by people. So it's things like development opportunities, flexible working, feeling like they're being listened to, the engagement is being looked at. It's the total pay and benefits package altogether, but that's not just written terms, it's the culture, it's the offering from you. So really have a think about that. And the way that you can do that is through measuring engagement. So I think if you've got more than sort of 10 staff, you need to start thinking about engagement and how you're going to measure that. And it can be something as simple as running an engagement survey every year. It's not too much work. We can help you with that. And you can really find out, what's important, because if your finger isn't on the pulse, how can you design a strategy, to retain staff? I just don't think you can. It'd be a stab in the dark. So I really would encourage everybody to think about measuring engagement. And as well, I mentioned this in the face-to-face one too. If you're thinking about certain accreditations that you can have, like being an employer of choice, you are required to have an engagement score. So you will need to measure your engagement and have a score. I think it's 80%. I might be wrong, but you need to demonstrate that you've got that to even be able to apply for the accreditation. So I would really think about that. And the next thing is financial health. So I think financial well-being is really hot at the minute. As an income provider, you have a duty to make sure that you're playing your part in looking after your employees' financial well-being. We've seen a lot of pay freezes throughout COVID. We've seen cost of living rising massively, and lots of security concerns. There's been lots of people that have lost their jobs, and even if they haven't lost their jobs, security has been a big concern for them. Hence why we've seen such limited movement within the labour market, because people are just clinging on to their jobs, even if they're not happy with what they're earning or whatever it may be. Security and worrying about money, I think, is a really, really big thing. And Andrew was with us last time, and he was talking to us about these workshops that he can run, that basically take different age groups in your organisation through a sort of short course on topics and trends that keep them. So, for example, they may come in and talk to your younger entry-level employees about how to start a savings account, how to invest money, how to think, how to prepare to purchase property, and they may talk to people in different age groups about trends that are key to them. And I believe that it's a free workshop, so if anybody's interested, I can pass you James's details on. Sorry that you can't be here today. He did talk in depth at the face-to-face HR exchange, but what he's offering is really, really interesting. So get in touch if you would like to know a bit more about that. Thinking about benefits as a whole then, these are some popular benefits that I have seen over the last 6 months. So enhanced holiday entitlement is a big one, I think. Even if it's just a few more days, the cost shouldn't be too substantial, or you could offer something like a day off on their birthday, or a mental health day, something like that. We've got death in service schemes, which are relatively common. We've got personal development days, not so common, but I think they're becoming more popular. Discounted technology schemes. I mean, I can't talk to you about how they work because I just don't know, but I'm seeing them quite a lot. Enhanced family leave. So this is a big one. I've seen that a lot this year. Employers are now starting to offer, for example, a month off for paternity leave rather than just 2 weeks, or they're offering, some enhanced maternity pay, and things like that. I think are really important. And yeah, like I said about the financial well-being, I think looking at providing advice to your teams on their financial health could be a really good option. Now, this is something that is a real bugbear for me, and it's seeing employers advertising benefits that are not benefits. It is a legal entitlement. So please don't put on your job advert you offer 5.6 weeks paid holiday. Please don't say that you offer statutory maternity pay or statutory sick pay. You legally are obliged to provide that for employees and workers. Don't say on there that they'll have the opportunity to make a flexible working request, because they're entitled to after they've been with you for the right length of time. So just go and do a mini audit of your job adverts. I think make sure that you're not putting on there things that you're legally obliged to provide, because it can sometimes be a bit of a red flag, I think, for employees. So think about all the other things that you can say about what it's like to work there, about your social events, about, you've got really supportive managers, you're committed to learning and development. Those are things you want to be shouting about, not things that you're legally obliged to provide. So now that's my part done. If anybody's got any questions, you can pop them in the chat, and then while Andy and Lindsay are talking, I can have a look through and maybe answer any that you've got. So I'll introduce you to Andy Hanselman of Andy Hanselman Consulting, who's now going to move on to talk to you a lot about culture. Are you all right, Andy? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Fab. All right then, I'll mute myself.
That's wonderful. Thanks for that. Thanks very much indeed. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And thanks, Phoebe, for that. And there's some brilliant stuff in there. And hopefully I can build on some of the things that we talked about. Before I start, I'm always conscious people asking who on earth is Andy Hanselman. I like to get the bad news out of the way straight away. I'm a management consultant. We help businesses improve what they do, what we call thinking in 3D. It's all about being dramatically and demonstrably different. And one of the key areas we do a lot of work with is helping businesses review, shape, and develop their culture, but also make sure that their people are up to speed with actually making sure this stuff is lived on a day-to-day basis. Culture, employee engagement, I've heard people talk about this, is apparently is one of the #1 issues for the world's business and HR leaders. And I think a starting point for me is just to sort of even ask that question, what exactly is culture? Because I was coming to an esteemed audience, I actually got my old MBA notes out to have a look. And apparently it's this, and I have no idea what that means. So the definition that I use and I like to use is this. It's the way we do things around here. But it's worth pointing out, it's the way we do things around here deliberately, accidentally, consciously, unconsciously. I work in some organisations, for example, where the culture is very different when the bosses are in and when they're out. I sometimes see it's different in different parts of the organisation. And what we see in the best businesses is that they actually try and paint a picture of how they want it to be and make it work. It's the way we do things around here. But the definition that I like is from a guy called Herb Keller, who was the founder of Southwestern Airlines. Southwestern Airlines is a very successful cheap and cheerful line in the States. They're like Ryanair, but they smile. And his definition of culture is it's what people do when no one's looking. And one of the very natures of my job, I like going into businesses and talking about culture and seeing what's going on. And I'm sure you've experienced it. You walk in somebody's business and somebody's office, and sometimes you can just feel it. And I was speaking at an event in Sheffield all about culture as competitive advantage. And this guy came to see me. He was the MD of a business just outside Penistone near Barnsley. He said, I'm fascinated by this culture stuff. He says, we haven't got a culture at our place. I said, you have? Because we have. I'm telling you, if I came to your business, I'd get a feel for your culture, because we haven't got one. I said, you have? He goes, no, nobody gives a toss at our place. That's your culture. And one of the things we see in the best businesses, they actually understand what their culture is, then more importantly, work on that to create and shape the one they want. And when we start looking at this, we start saying, well, okay, well, why is it so important? It's often seen as being the soft, touchy-feely side of business. I actually think it's the hardest part to deal with. Over half of workers sort of rank strong workplace culture more important than salary. Nearly 2/3 say that the organisation's culture is one of the main reasons for staying in their job. What's very interesting, and we heard Phoebe talk about this, nearly 70% of people actually looking for jobs use things like Twitter, Facebook to get insights into company culture. If you've not had a look at, start looking at this whole idea of what's going on here, Glassdoor, have a look. Google your own business, see what happens. It's quite scary, some of the stuff that's up there. I actually had a look at the Andy Hanselman one. Amazingly, one person, obviously doesn't say his name, but he says it's actually a fantastic place to work, and he would give it 5 out of 5. So if only 3 was in our business, then I've got a good idea who it was. And yes, it was me. The downside of this is that anybody can put anything up there, and it's quite difficult to challenge it. So the world is becoming more and more transparent. But it's also about your recruitment experience. What's it like when I come for an interview with you? 81% of candidates who had bad recruitment experience openly tell others about it. The news spreads. So it's making sure that you've actually got a whole process involved, actually making the stuff work for you, to actually demonstrate your culture. And we talk about having a dramatically and demonstrably different approach. And we see these 3D businesses, which we call them, what we call an Uber culture. I want to stress this is nothing to do with taxi companies. I'm just going to take you through this model, and I'd like you just thinking about your business and you're part of the business even, and actually work out how do we measure up against these things and what do we need to do to make it work for us. So this Uber starts with everybody understanding what's expected of them and behaving accordingly and consistently. Now, a couple of things to stress here. It never fails to amaze me when I talk to people, go, oh yeah, Andy, we've got a set of core values. What are they? Oh, there's something about customers and people. You'll see it on the reception. This is not just about having a set of core values and sticking them on the walls and nice posters. It's actually making sure that people understand and live how we do things around here. Timpson's, I think, are a fantastic example. And if you want to sort of get a good feel for a business that does this really, really well, James Timpson talks about they having 2 rules in their business because of what they want from their people. The first is to look the part. And that doesn't just mean how you dress, but it's your whole manner in terms of looking after customers. And the second rule is put the money in the till. And that might seem very simplistic, but they actually gear everything around helping people make that happen. The role of their leaders and their managers, they actually say is this: look after your people, let them be the best they can be, clear the obstacles, get out of the way. Give them the freedom to deal with customers as they see fit. And all their managers are rated by their staff once every 3 months on how well they're doing that. And I'd argue this is a business actually making this stuff work. In terms of actually engaging people and empowering, engaging is quite interesting. For example, you can have any job title you want and they'll put it on your name badge for you. Just very simple things like how you want to be called. They just make sure you're clear about that. But some of the little things that they do, you have a day off for your kids' first day at school. They're nice and that for grandkids. If you're getting married, they'll give you 5 days off. They'll give you the money towards your wedding. And if you really want to, you can borrow the company's Rolls Royce for the day. So these are things that I think would differentiate this business from lots and lots of other organisations. Huel, you might be familiar with Huel, food replacement business. Very, very simple about what their behaviours are about. That's quite interesting. That's what they say we're about. This is us. They've shaped this up. You go into their reception of their offices in Swindon. That's the chief exec stood by their reception there as you walk in there. You might have to use up front as that, but it's actually about spelling out how you want to do it. Very simple example here, PJ Taste, the business in Sheffield, Peter and John, the team, we work with them to actually shape up what their values were. And we asked the questions, how do you want it to be around here? What's important to us? What was very interesting, and I was at a seminar last week, which Peter was speaking about, they actually said, we shaped it up as a senior team, and then we got the team involved. And they came up with far better descriptions and understanding of this than we did. But the key bit is what they actually then did, is that they turned these values into clear behaviours. They spell out the behaviours up for everybody. So for everyone for passionate, there's some core behaviours that they use to actually manage people, to reward people, and to recruit people. Your behaviours need to be spelt out, meaningful, used and lived. This is not just about putting posters on the wall. So one of the things I want you to think a bit about is, are you clear about the behaviours from people, and are they clear about how they actually do those things? So that's the U of Uber. The B is that systems and processes are built to support and reinforce the culture and the behaviours you actually want. An amazing business in the States called Zappos, built on 10 core values, which sounds very, very, very cheesy. Based in Las Vegas, I was very, very lucky. I went to visit them a couple of years ago, built by a guy called Tony Shea on these 10 core values. Got bought out by Amazon 3 years ago, I think it was now, for like $1.8 billion. And part of the deal is Amazon will have to go nowhere near them because they've set these 10 core values and they live their business around them. It's basically online shoes. That's what they sell. It's the world's $1 billion online shoe shop. It's an amazing business to see, some fantastic lessons. I'll talk about those in a sec. Monzo, very simple thing to help people work with each other. They've got people spread all over the place. They have a little initiative called Working With Me at Monzo. And basically it's a database where you put on details about yourself, what you're good at, maybe what you're not so good at, what's the best way to work with me. And that is available for people to have a look at. You don't have to do it, but it's there to allow people to interact and engage across boundaries so people can get the best out of each other. I think that's a great system or process built to reinforce their behaviours. Ritz Carlton, where every member of staff at Ritz Carlton is empowered, spend up to $2,000 to solve a customer's problem on the spot without talking to the manager. They have 10-minute meetings. And those 10-minute meetings every morning are based around their values. They talk about their values. They talk about people who've delivered on those things. They highlight their champions. They don't just talk about sales targets and finance targets. They put this on the agenda. But more local. Hannah at the Great Escape, one of the things that they were doing when they were recruiting, particularly for their ambassadors, who are the people who interact, it's quite a sexy job. And lots of young people applying. They used to get flooded with applications. And lots of them were people that weren't fit for what they were doing. So they just changed their recruitment policy. They said, if you want to work for us, send us a video. That reduced lots and lots of people who were applying. But some, oh, I wouldn't want to do that. Well, you're probably not going to be good at doing the exercise they actually want to do. So doing it by video works for them, not for everybody. And the clients of ours in Sheffield, PMS die casting, precision engineering, when they're recruiting their engineers, recruiting their precision engineers, their apprentices, people have got to work to tend to the detail, to tight deadlines. They give an airfix model in half an hour as part of the recruitment process. See how they get on with it. See how they act under stress, particularly their youngsters. I did it. I left the pilot out of the cockpit. I have no attention to detail. 3 Squared. Business in Sheffield, every member of staff at 3 Squared is given a £1,000 personal development budget where you're allowed to spend it on not just training, but going to a conference, going to an exhibition, learning. This is a key message that they actually want to maximise the performance of their people. Another client of ours, Just Star, they have a very simple thing called the book club. Small business, the recruitment business, but particularly for the National Health Service over in the Northwest. And what they actually do is they get their team together, they buy them all a copy of the book, usually a personal development or a business book, and they 3 weeks later, they all come back together and just share lessons and share learning. And what they said is very, very important and very useful is that this has actually got some of them junior members of the team talking about some of the issues that they face. One Disco, Sheffield and International Business, announced just a couple of weeks ago they are moving to the 4-day week. In our little group, in our discussion, we actually heard Jason from Reef, a team of 7 people, they've gone to 4 days as well. So it's quite interesting how many more people are doing this, and being to see what happens to actually get people on board and making this stuff work. The engaged, empowered, enabled bit. Now, this empowerment thing is one of those things that consultants, I'm sure, have to speak about all the time. I had one client of mine who told me that, well, Andy, I've empowered my staff to delight my customers. And it turns out 5 years ago, 2 of his guys been on Chamber of Commerce breakfast seminar for 20 minutes. I'm not knocking Chamber of Commerce breakfast seminars. I'm sort of saying is we're going to make sure we give people the tools to do the job. Webmart, run by a guy in Barnsley and Bicester called Simon Biltcliffe, on capitalist Marxist principles. They make lots of profit and they share it. And they have a little thing called where dreams come true. When you first join the business, once you've been there for 6 months, you're asked, if you were to be given £2,000 to blow on whatever you want to do, what would you do it? What would you spend it on? People put it in an envelope, it's sealed up. If every month now, these do every quarter, every month they hit their sales target, profit target, delivery performance and customer satisfaction targets, they spin the wheel. Whoever it lands on gets the £2 grand. You've got a bunch of people there who are quite engaged in what the business is trying to achieve, what it's trying to do. Zappos, the guys I talked about, these are their core values. Yeah, they might not mean much to us, but they've actually made it meaningful for people. So, for example, they were telling us when we went to see them, one of the key things for delivering great customer experiences is stay on the phone till you actually get sorted. That's one of the rules. Quite a few call centres I've worked on with, get off the phone as quick as you can. Their record length of time for one person on the phone with one customer, 10 hours, 51 minutes. I'm not suggesting if that was happening all the time, they'd be in good form, but it's this whole idea of saying, get the job done. I mentioned Southwestern Airlines. They believe their people are their dramatic difference. They encourage them to do the announcements in any way they want. There's certain legal things they have to say, but here are some of the things they've been heard to say. They have 50 ways to leave your lover, there are only 4 ways off this plane. Want to enhance the appearance of our flight, people will be dimming the cabin lights. Your bags are available on Carousel X, if you don't find them, probably available on 2 to 3 weeks on eBay. Again, and if you go on the research on YouTube, fantastic video of a guy rapping the instructions. And I'm not suggesting all you need to do is start getting your staff to start learning to rap. It's this whole idea of, do we spell out the behaviours we want from them? Very quick story. Client of mine, she was an HR director of a business in Leeds, went down to London for a 3-day HR conference, got off the train at King's Cross and actually found that her purse had gone. Went back to train, it wasn't there. She actually looked, says, Andy, I've got enough cash in my pocket to get to the hotel, which had been paid for by the company. So she's there in the room now, ringing round all the banks. She says it was an incredibly dull, laborious task. Name, number. Until I rang First Direct. And they said, how are you? Where are you? She goes, well, I'm told her the story. What happened? She goes, are you safe? Are you okay? They'd explain everything that's going on. Because well, I can get your card to you in a couple of weeks' time, but in a couple of days' time. That's not going to help you for cash now. What do you do for the cash for the next few days? She goes, I've not even thought about that. This lady goes, well, I've had a quick look on Google Maps, about 450 yards down the road from your hotel, there's an HSBC bank. If you tell me what you're wearing tomorrow, I'll actually have £250 waiting for you. You might have to give me a call, but I'll get them waiting for you. We'll sort it all out. I don't believe in the First Direct staff handbook, because in the event of a customer being stranded at Hyde Park Corner, this is what you do. In other words, they've actually spelled out the behaviours they actually want. And the last bit is, are you rewarded and recognised for doing this? I had a client of mine, she said, oh, Andy, I'm trying to get my lot to go the extra mile for customers. I said, what do they get if they do it? Because they won't do it. I said, what do they get? She goes, they don't get anything. I says, they do. She goes, what? I says, they get more work. The reward for doing a great job is you get more work. If you've got anybody in your team got a job doing properly, you give it to them. Rotherham Hospice, we help develop their core values and behaviours. One of the things that they do is they have a little thing called You've Been Mugged, where anybody can give anybody else a mug, leave it on the desk with sweets, chocolates, anything they like, then hopefully know a bit about them for them. Like at Southwestern Airlines, they actually get their customers to nominate their staff who've lived the values, who've demonstrated these things. You can actually nominate them, you can cash them in for prizes. Just be careful how you do that. I was actually once in a well-known out-of-town shopping centre near Sheffield, and these posts up saying, please nominate our customer service champions. And I actually was served by this young lad called Brett, and he was brilliant. And I said, I'm nominating you. He says, oh, please don't. I said, why not? He says, I've already had 7 nominations this month. He said, that's great. I said, you'll win. He goes, I don't want to win. Why not? It's just the prize you get to go to dinner with the managing director. If you're going to reward and recognise people, do it in a way that works for them. So there's Uber culture, very, very simple. Understanding, everybody understands what's expected of them. Are your systems and processes built to support and reinforce it? Are people engaged, empowered, enabled? And you reward and recognise for doing it. And one of the things you want to just do is take a bit of time to see how your business measures up, particularly when it comes to culture. How would you describe it? Just watch this, please, very quickly. Some of you will see this before.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Count the number of passes. How many did you see? Did you see 13?
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Did you see the moonwalking bear? Watch it again. Here he comes. Lots of people don't see these things. And what I'm encouraging you to think a bit about is you might have a picture of your culture, but is it really what's going on? Because maybe sometimes the things happening are different when you're around. So some questions you might want to consider. Ask your team to write down or describe, how would you describe our culture in just 3 words? Another one, what would you tell a friend about working with a client of ours who actually did this? They actually got some fantastic quotes they actually started to use in their recruitment process. What one thing should we change? What one thing should we never stop doing? And I think it's an interesting one. What do we reward and recognise around here, formally and informally? And that can be quite a useful way of creating a conversation within your team, within your business. If you do the one with the 3 words, use Wordle. It's nothing to do with the competition that we're now seeing. Wordle, basically, go on wordle.org, type in all the words, and you'll get a picture of what's going on. Fantastic way of just painting a picture of where you are with your culture. And then establish what you're happy with, what you're not so happy with, what you want to do. And then the key bit is identifying the steps you need to take to make this work for you. I'll leave you one other quote. Dharmesh Shah, the founder of HubSpot. You're going to have a culture anyway. You can and should influence it. So why not build the one you love? Have a go, try this thing. And people often say to me, Matt, I heard this, if you always do what you've always done, people say, get what you've always got. No, I don't think we'll in this world anymore. I think if you always do what you've always done, you'll get left behind. So work out what this means for you, have a go at it. Got a very simple toolkit that you can access. I'll send you the link via Jay and the team, or if you want to scan it on there, you can get it. And it's a little e-book to actually help you make this stuff work for you. Have a go. Any questions or comments, please get in touch, and we'll see you soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Andy. I think we'll all agree your presentations are always great, really engaging, but also full of some amazing ideas. So we've gone through the recruitment, we've gone through ideas, and the next stop now, unfortunately, for some, it's let's go through some of the legal aspects of recruitment. So you're over to me now. I'm just going to share my screen with you again. So you should all be able to see that. So yes, you want to be focusing on creating this great place to work, enticing those candidates over. But when you do make that decision, obviously there's lots of legal things you need to be considering. So we're going to look at safe ways to recruit. Firstly, considering your recruitment process as a whole. So first of all, we need to identify the vacancy, and then we move through all the steps. I think identifying the vacancy particularly is quite important, because sometimes there may not be a vacancy. You might think, oh, I need someone else, but do you? And at that point, I think just take a step back, have a look. Is everyone else working efficiently? Have you considered whether you might need to do a slight reorganisation of roles or duties? Review all your job descriptions. As I said, is everyone doing what they are supposed to be doing? Do you in fact really need to hire or not? So that, I do think it's an important step. And if you do want help with that, we can help with reviews of things like reorganisations and restructures. But also, whilst you're considering, do I even need to take someone on? If you do get to the point of thinking, well, I probably do, there's something you need to be aware of, which is our discrimination legislation. So it's called the Equality Act 2010. We've had it now for many, many years. And it's an evolving piece of legislation, not necessarily in terms of actual legal amendments, but in case law. So every year we see more and more cases coming through that tweak and clarify exactly now what the legislation covers. So who does it apply to? It applies to employees of all levels, regardless of whether you are the managing director right down to the cleaner. It covers job applicants, temporary seasonal workers, agency workers, self-employed, EU migrants, so anyone who steps through your door. When does it apply? So some of you may know that to be unfairly dismissed and to bring a claim for unfair dismissal, you have to be employed for 2 years. That is not the case with discrimination claims. And like I said, a job applicant is covered and therefore could bring a claim against you before they have even stepped through your door. So what does it apply to? So we still only have 9 characteristics, but as I said, you know, we see more and more cases now that are redefining these and stretching them and making them more applicable. So yeah, I would say like one of the most recent ones that particularly noted is recognising veganism. And granted, that case is very specific. The person who brought that claim he practiced veganism to the nth degree. You know, he was, you know, he didn't wear leather, he didn't use public, well, I don't know if he used public transport, but he certainly didn't use air travel. He really practiced all those principles. Do I think we're going to get any more? I don't know, is the answer. But my advice to you is, even though we've only got these nine categories, is that really you should be treating everyone the same regardless. I get questions like, if someone's overweight, is that a protected characteristic? If someone got a certain hair colour, is that protected characteristic? And it's like, well, it all depends, because all the cases are so specific. Someone might be overweight because they have a disability, so it could be linked to that. My advice is, don't get hung up on these. Let's just be fair to everyone when we're doing our recruitment. So when do we really need to think about our discrimination legislation during recruitment? Well, it's when we decide who to offer the job to, what terms we're offering. Not offering a job, obviously, that is a big one. And also harassment. I'll just go back to this one, because actually, I am actually dealing with some litigation at the moment. I am representing a client who unfortunately has become embroiled in a very nasty discrimination claim, all because they turned down a candidate. The CV was sent to them by a recruitment company that wasn't known to them. They have reviewed the CV, decided that the candidate wasn't right for them due to location, due to experience, and due to the amount of money that he was asking for. They said to the recruitment company, thank you, but we're not interested in interviewing, which was their standard process. They then got asked for feedback, which they did provide. And again, they gave all those reasons that I've just listed. But that candidate now is taking that employee to a tribunal on the basis that he believes he's been discriminated against because of his disability. And the reason being is the CV listed him as having, I think it listed him as having autism, dyspraxia, and maybe one or the two of conditions. My client didn't make the decision not to interview because of that, and even provided feedback to say it was not because of that. However, this claimant, he is a serial claimant. He has brought over 30 tribunal claims on or around these issues. And I think this is a lesson to us all that we need to be taking discrimination in the recruitment process very seriously. You think it's not going to happen to you? Well, it might, because it's happening to my client at the moment, and they're now spending a lot of money trying to defend what I believe is a very spurious and malicious claim. But we've got to convince a tribunal of that. So how do we protect you? What do we do? Well, we need to keep a paper trail, first of all. This is going to provide evidence of good practice. It's going to show that you've taken reasonable steps to prevent discrimination. We need to show that any selection decisions are based on objective evidence of the candidate's ability to do the job and not on assumptions or prejudices. So, for example, in the past, I have had clients say to me, I don't employ women of childbearing age. It's too inconvenient, they want time off, and yeah, so, and at that point, I do think he pointed at me. They said, you know, as in women of childbearing age, and the finger pointed out, and I just thought, oh, great, we've got some work to do with you. So, yeah, don't make assumptions about what people can and can't do. And then it's also to show that adequate training has been given to your recruiters. So equality and diversity training, but also some general training on how to interview, appropriate questions to ask. Make sure that you've got a very set process so that if you have managers doing the interviewing, that it doesn't matter which manager from which department interviews, they all follow the same steps. So moving on then, so we've decided we want to take someone on. We know about our legislation. We know we've got to be careful now in how we move forward. So how do we then actually go about doing this? So first of all, we're going to advertise, and we're going to prepare a job description of person spec. Your job description is a formal account of responsibilities, and the idea is that's to list exactly what you want that person to do. And this can help you as well in future performance management. If you turn around to an employee and say, well, you haven't been doing this and this, and they turn around and say, well, that was never in my job description. You know, maybe it's time to update your job descriptions. Same as it can be used for vice versa. No, this is very clear in your job description and you are not doing it. Person spec is different though. Your person spec is about the type of person that you need in that role. So that could be things to do with their skills and their qualifications and their experience. Again, we do have to be careful when we're talking about experience so that we're not excluding either people at the younger end of the market or the older. But ultimately, there are going to be some roles within your organisation that require a high level of experience, certainly in your management roles. So we've prepared those, and then we need to decide if an exemption applies. So that is to do if you are wanting to say, I only want to recruit a woman for this role, or I only want to recruit someone from a certain ethnic background. Think carefully, come and get advice before you put that ad out, because as I said, you can only do that in very limited circumstances. So then we move on to advertising, and we need to think about where it's going to go, but also how are we going to advertise? So here I've put on just some examples that have actually been mentioned in tribunal hearings over the years. So recent graduate required, seeking young enthusiastic worker, handyman required. Some of these are going to be pretty obvious to you. So you may have guessed from where I'm going with this that all of these at some point have been criticised. So maybe the not so obvious ones. Recent graduate required. Well, obviously you're probably then targeting a younger audience and you're excluding older people from that advert. Young enthusiastic workers, probably a bit more obvious. Handyman, I know we're getting a bit pernickety here, but someone may read that and go, well, why do you need a man? Well, no, we mean person, anyone, but still it's how that advert's interpreted. Italian sales rep required. Then you might think, well, what's wrong with that? Well, do you need a genuine Italian person, or do you need someone that speaks Italian? Different things. So yeah, if you need an Italian speaker, that is what you would ask for, not necessarily someone who is from Italy. I think appropriate for a mature lady. I hope that you all avoid that one. Again, that's cropped up in a recent case of mine where one of my clients was told that the role was more suited for a mature lady who wasn't as ambitious. Again, maybe we should avoid those turns of phrase. Will suit candidates in the first 5 years of their career. Again, that could relate to age, and then 6 years continuous experience required. Well, what about women who have had career breaks, had time out for maternity, men now who have had career breaks and time out. Again, could be for family related issues. We've just got to think now about what language we are using and how that could be interpreted. So inviting applicants. Sorry, I think we've lost some slides. So yes, I have a standard process and equality monitoring throughout. So as I said, making sure that everyone knows what they're doing when they're doing it. Inviting applications then. So this is the standardized process point. Yeah, it's up to you how you do it. Some people say, can you just send me a CV? Others will say, no, fill in our application form. The benefit of giving someone a blank application form to fill in is that, first of all, you are dictating them the information that you receive and that they're going to put on there. If you allow CVs to be submitted, again, like my client, you could inadvertently be given information that could make you vulnerable, and also information that actually you don't need and is not relevant to the process. So on your application form, you can really make sure you are focusing on the information that you do need. For example, their job history, their qualifications. You can cut out all the other little bits so that actually is going to make it harder for you to sift through the applications. And again, as well, making sure that if you are receiving CVs from recruitment companies, try and do name blind recruitment and removing things such as references to age, even location as well has been an issue past. So you are just purely making your decision based on, has that person got enough experience? Have they got the right experience? And have they got the right qualifications for what you need? So interview tips then. So we've decided to interview. Have more than one person interviewing where possible. We need to ask if adjustments are needed prior to the interview. So hopefully up to that point, even you're probably not aware whether that person does require adjustments, but at the point you ask them to attend, that's when it's okay to say, is there anything we need to be aware of? Can we make, do you require any adjustments that to allow you to attend that interview? You don't need the medical history. You don't even need to ask what they're or why they need it. All you're asking is there anything that we can do to make sure that you can attend? Don't recognise when you're making stereotypical assumptions about people. Make sure you apply scoring method objectively and consistently. So again, beforehand, you should have a set form, which I think should have set questions that all candidates are going to be asked, and then an agreement on how you are going to score that. So it could be that you agree that that question is worth 5 marks. Another question could be worth 10, but then you've got 2 people scoring, so then you can either take the average or you can add them together. Prepare questions based on the person's specification job description. So I see you preparing beforehand. Avoid questions that are not relevant. You do not need to know if someone is planning to have a family in the next few years. Don't ask it. Try and avoid those topics that could be seen as you digging to see, well, you're going to need any time off. Same as if someone maybe has disclosed to you they've got a disability. By all means, you can ask them how things are going. But if you dig in and say, are you going to need a lot of time off for appointments? It's going to be taken the wrong way. Considering your timing of interviews as well, making sure that everyone can attend. So for example, if someone's got childcare issues, they might not be able to attend first thing in the morning, and then around school pickup times. Feedback. So, like I said, my client generally didn't give feedback if they were just turning down a CV, but then they were asked for it and they did choose to give it. And I would be saying now that if you are asked to provide feedback, then you should, because it could be a warning that something is about to land. Can be written or oral. Obviously written is better because you are controlling what you're saying, but also you're creating that paper trail that we said is really important. Those documents are going to be critical, as said in the Employment Tribunal, to prove what was said and also why, why you didn't take that candidate on or take them further in the process. And then, an employer, if you decide you're not going to give feedback at all, then you do need to be careful, because it could give that candidate the idea of, oh, well, was it because of one of my protected characteristics? Was it because they thought I was disabled, or you know, was it because I was a certain colour, a certain race, sex, religion? So you can, by not providing feedback, which I appreciate is when you have been inundated with applications, it's very tempting to say, no, we're not doing any feedback, or I don't know, maybe think about it. I think, seeing what my clients go through now, I think there's a big benefit to just doing a few lines to someone to say, this is why you were not a suitable candidate. So we're now going to make them an offer. Always make that offer subject to references, and take up the references. You know, don't just take the names down and don't do anything with it. Make sure that your offer is subject to your references. You go away and you do your research, you phone those references, you write to them. Sometimes you might get some resistance in terms of providing more detailed references. Pick up the phone and ask. This is the time for you to identify your red flags, and then withdraw the offer if you do actually have any concerns. If you, in terms of withdrawing, provided that you have made that offer subject to the reference being satisfactory, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. The other thing it needs to be subject to is obviously permission to work in the UK. So right to work now has changed. But things, well, and in terms of what you need to do and the evidence you need to gather has changed, given that, you know, obviously we've left the EU, but the penalties haven't changed, and the enforcement of this, if anything, has just gone up. So there I've just put that, yeah, we've got fines up to £20,000, 5 years imprisonment, and from the 1st of July, everyone must be able to show that they've either got pre-settled status, settled status, or a valid visa. So in order to avoid any claims, though, that in respect to this, for instance, for race discrimination, you need to make sure you're asking everyone the same questions. So all candidates need to be asked, do you have the right to work in the UK? And you should be asking that question regardless of someone's accent, regardless of someone's skin colour, how they present, what their clothes say about them. You cannot assume someone is British and therefore, oh, I don't need to ask that. Because we are so diverse now, it's foolish, it's illegal not to ask the question, and it could land you in hot water. But again, the same question is asked of everyone. And then if, as I said, if approvals are needed, your offer needs to be conditional upon those approvals, and you need to be obtaining those on day one. So you need to see a copy of passports or any visas, if you haven't already got them beforehand. Also, when you're looking at making your offer or making it a conditional offer, make sure you have a look at the contracts, particularly if you're taking on sales. So they may have restrictive covenants in their contract which prevent them from dealing with customers or clients, or even direct not compete, so saying that they can't work for a competitor. If you are a competitor, if you have the same clients as customers as your competitors and you're wanting to steal their salesmen, you might end up with an employee that is very limited in what they can do for the first few months. Restrictive covenants can be very difficult to enforce, but as I say, even if I could tell you that the restriction is completely unenforceable, what I can't do is then stop the other side from at least trying to enforce them. So, and you could be implicated in that, so you could end up being a party to those proceedings. Always verify contents of the applicant's CV as well. How do we know they're telling the truth? You know, that people make stuff up all the time. People elaborate on their CVs. So just, you know, ask for the certificates. Maybe ask for, if they're saying that they've done some work, ask for testimonials, things like that. Just verify all their claims to make sure that you are getting the candidates in real life that they say they are on paper. And then if we do need to withdraw an offer, we've written record of this again before accepting. Means that we haven't got any contractual liability. So if they haven't accepted, we don't need to worry about any notice. But if they have accepted, we may need to give them a notice period as set out in the contract that they've agreed to. If they haven't already started working for you, then that notice can run straight away and be unpaid. Obviously, if they've started working, you need to abide by that notice. And then your contract. So these are a day one right now. So you need to make sure you've either got them ready beforehand, which is obviously the ideal situation, or you've got them ready to present on day one. And then in terms of your contract, this is something that I think you should be thinking about actually right at the beginning when you're looking at vacancy. How are you going to take that person on? Is it going to be fixed hours, casual worker, 0 hours? I am not anti 0 hour contracts, provided that they are given in the right circumstances and they are fair. So don't be put off by that. Take time to consider what your business needs. So in your contracts, as I said, it's now a day one right, but there are key bits of information that we need in there. So these are the standard bits that are part of your principal statement, and basically setting out exactly what you are offering someone. But since April 2020, we've had some additional information that is required by law to be in there. So you need more information about their hours. Can they be varied? Entitlements to paid leave. Are they entitled to any other benefits, even if it is just to say you're not entitled to any other benefits? Detail how the probationary period is going to be dealt with. Also details on training provided. Again, even if the line in your contract just says we're not going to provide you with any training, it needs to be in there, or otherwise your contract could be found to be defective. There's loads of people that haven't updated the contracts. If you need an updated contract, you want us to look at that, please get in touch. And yeah, we can help you with that. But certainly don't be using contracts now that you've had for like 5 years. They're going to be outdated, and there's probably going to be some more clauses in there that we can add in. For example, confidentiality. Can we put restrictions in? And then notice, you always want pylon in there, so payment in lieu of notice and garden leave to give you more flexibility should you need to exit that employee. So a handbook as well. Again, make sure you've got this available, because this is also going to be part of not necessarily defining your culture, because that is a different thing, but it's setting out your rules. And one thing I think people really value is consistency. They need to know everyone is being treated the same, and your handbook can set that out. So everyone knows where the rules are, they know what's expected of them, and the rules are applied consistently. Your day one checklist, then make sure you provide your contracts and your policies. You get that copies of passports and visas. Equipment, make sure that you've ordered the laptop in and IT have set it up. Do they need to wear a uniform? Have you communicated all this? Have they got a buddy system? There is nothing worse than turning up to a new job day one and no one's expecting you. You get pushed into someone's office and they look at you and say, oh my God, are you my problem? Make sure that doesn't happen to your day one starter, because they may not stay. If they have been lucky enough to receive multiple offers, then they may have a fallback position, and they might not think twice of doing a few days with you and thinking, no, it's not for me. Create a good impression on your first days. Make sure they know the basics, where the toilets are, what's expected of breaks, office etiquette. So we all have our different rules. One rule that I think is probably consistent throughout all offices and workspaces is everyone has their own mug. And you need to make sure that new starters know what mugs they can use and what they can't. And have a plan in place, as again, for more specific training. So when that person comes in, you can say, right, we obviously can't go everything through today, but tomorrow you're going to meet with so-and-so and they're going to do this training with you. We've got this training planned next week. And just so that person can see that time and thought has been considered and put into their starting. So good practice then, once you've got them on board. Regular one-to-ones and appraisals. This is how you're going to weed out the problems. This is how you're going to start working on your staff retention as well, because as part of your appraisals, you need to be ascertaining people's goals, their ambitions, what they're wanting to do moving forward, how they feel they're being stretched in their current role. And if someone is unhappy, then your appraisal is your opportunity to start working on them to make sure that they stay. As I said, there's lots of jobs out there, they'll just look elsewhere. And people want to know that there's a progression and a plan for them too. Staff incentives, so whether this be your gym memberships and your more formal paid for, like your healthcare and all that. Really, to me, I think what we've learned today is that your staff incentives are now shifting towards more cultural based groundings, and you need to be looking at things that reward people, make people feel valued. We're moving away from that culture of your manager doesn't speak to you unless you've done a bad job. That manager should be speaking to you and saying you've done an amazing job. And I know there is that thing, we all snowflakes now, do we all need praise and love me, have I done amazing? But there is a lot to be said for making someone feel like they are not only delivering, but that they are part of the team. So your culture, you've got lots of ideas now to take away to start working on your own culture. And as Andy said, it is what you make. You've got a culture, whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not. So you need to mold that and make it something that reflects the values of your business and your firm. Applying consistent standards. There's nothing worse than people coming to me and saying, I've been put through a disciplinary, but someone did the same thing and they haven't, and that's how grievances arise. And then obviously your problem areas that you may need some extra support on. And as I said before, we've got our Watertight package. We've just got our HR consultants. So you don't have to be part of our Watertight to access our HR support and services. Like I said, we can parachute in our HR to support you with things like the disciplinaries and the grievances. Make sure that your processes are fair. Same as if you just need a little bit of extra help with absence management, that can be another really tricky area. And yeah, consider HR support. So we're offering some complimentary reviews. Jason is on the call today as well, and Jason would be more than happy to come and speak to you about specifically what your business needs. Also, he is running a free drop-in session at the Digital Media Centre in Barnsley. That's the first Wednesday of every month from 9:30 till 11:30. So if you are in that area and you need a little bit of help on your HR or health and safety, pop in, have a chat with Jason. And we'll see how we can help you. And then we've got some exciting upcoming events. So this year we're really going for it. I think we want to make up for lost time. So we've got our socials. We've got one tomorrow. So again, if you are in Sheffield tomorrow, come and join us at New Era Square, 5:30 till 8. Just come and have some drinks. We enjoy our socials because it's our opportunity to show you that we're real people, and we want to get to know you as people as well. It's fantastic for networking. You'll meet some amazing businesses within the Sheffield area. So if you do want to come along, please there's an email address at the bottom there, alice@bhayanilaw.co.uk. Just let her know that you want to come along, and we'll be more than happy to welcome you in with a glass of bubbly. Our next HR exchanges, so our next ones, we've got next month we're running settlement agreements, safe exit processes. We're running that in Sheffield, Zoom, and I think I'm not sure if that one's going to be at Barnsley as well. I'm not sure if we've got a date for that one. Our big employment law update, please get booked onto that. We expect that one to be really busy. So have a look at the dates that we've got coming up. We are running some more Sheffield ones, I do believe, that aren't on there, but keep an eye out on our social media, get onto Eventbrite, get yourself booked on and come to our next lot of events. And then that's it from us. So thank you very much everyone for attending. If you've got any questions, either please feel free to unmute yourself or you can put them in the chat box. We'll be hovering around for another 5-10 minutes or so, just to, and if you just want a quick chat, or as I said, you've got anything that you want to ask us. But yeah, please get in touch, follow us on social media, and yeah, let us, and certainly let us know if you want to come for a drink. So it'd be really exciting to see some of you guys there as well. So again, thank you very much for attending today.